Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we are opening up the essential AWS security toolbox, specifically for your AI systems. Look, if you're building with AI in the cloud or even just studying for a certification, you absolutely have to know these tools. It's not optional.
Okay, before we get into the tools themselves, let's get on the same page with the absolute foundation of all information security, the CIA triad. This is kind of the why behind everything we're about to do. First, you've got confidentiality. That's all about keeping your data secret. Then integrity, making sure that data hasn't been tampered with. And finally, availability, which just means you can actually get to your stuff when you need it. Simple, right? But it's the bedrock for everything else.
So, here's our game plan. We're going to start with some security fundamentals, then we'll dive right into how to lock down your data. After that, we'll talk about finding sensitive information in the first place, securing your network, and then, this is a big one, we'll clarify who's responsible for what. All right, first up, let's focus on that C from the triad, confidentiality. When we're talking about AI, this is absolutely massive. This is about protecting your secret sauce, right? Your unique models and those huge, often really sensitive data sets you're using. If that gets out, it's not just a privacy nightmare. It's your entire competitive edge gone.
And that brings us to our very first tool, and honestly, probably the most important one, AWS Key Management Service, or KMS. This is the core service, pun definitely intended, for creating and managing the encryption keys that lock everything down. Just think of KMS as the master locksmith for your entire AWS setup.
So we have our master locksmith, KMS. But it's not a one-size-fits-all deal. It's not just about having a key. It's about knowing which type of key to use for the job. You have to pick the right one.
And KMS gives you a few different flavors, and it all comes down to how much control you really need. You've got customer-managed keys, where you are completely in the driver's seat. Then there's AWS-managed keys, which is kind of a happy medium. And finally, AWS-owned keys, which are totally hands-off, used by AWS for its own internal services.
So, what's the real difference? I mean, why would you pick one over the other? Well, it all comes down to a single word, metadata. Let's imagine you're in a high-compliance industry. An auditor comes to you and asks, can you show me a log of every single time this encryption key was used and by whom? With AWS managed keys, you can't. You don't have that info. Only customer managed keys give you that deep audit trail. It's an absolutely critical distinction. Now, if KMS is the master locksmith for your building, think of Cloud HSM as bringing in your own personal, tamper-proof bank vault. This is a dedicated piece of hardware, a physical box in the cloud that's all yours, just for your keys. This is the Fort Knox of key management, really. You only bring this in for the most extreme security and compliance requirements, like for government work.
Okay, great. Our data is encrypted. It's locked down tight. But hang on. What if you don't even know where all your sensitive data is hiding? You could have terabytes of training data. How do you find that one needle in the haystack before a hacker does?
Well, for that job, we're going to grab another tool from our box, Amazon Massey. You can think of Massey as a data detective that works for you. It automatically scans all of your S3 buckets, sniffing out things like social security numbers, credit card numbers, all that personally identifiable information that could be buried deep inside your AI training sets.
And how does it do it? It's actually pretty brilliant. It's not just doing a simple text search. Massey uses machine learning to understand the context of your data. It also has a whole library of built-in identifiers for common things. And here's the really powerful part. It lets you create your own custom identifiers for data that's totally unique to your business.
All right, so we've taken care of our data where it lives, what we call data at rest. But what about when that data is on the move? When it's going from one service to another. That's data in transit, and it needs its own kind of protection. And this brings up a really important question for anyone designing a secure system. You've got services that need to talk to each other, but the idea of that traffic going over the public internet, even for a second, is just terrifying. So how do you make sure your data never, ever sees the public internet?
The answer is a tool called AWS Private Link, and it is incredibly cool. It basically creates a secure, private tunnel for your network traffic, keeping everything happening inside the AWS network. This is a massive win for security. It shrinks your attack surface way down, because if your data never touches the public internet, well, it can't be attacked from the public internet. Simple as that.
Okay, last but certainly not least, let's get crystal clear on the rules of engagement here. This might be the single most important concept to understand when you're working in the cloud. Security isn't just one person's job.
This is the shared responsibility model. It draws a very clear line in the sand. AWS is responsible for the security of the cloud. Think of it like the physical building, the concrete, the wiring, the guards at the door. You, the customer, are responsible for security in the cloud. That's configuring your user access, encrypting your data, and securing the applications you build. They secure the playground. You secure how your kids play in it.
So, let's wrap this all up. Here's your quick cheat sheet, perfect for that exam you're studying for, or just for your day-to-day work. KMS, that's your locksmith. Mackie, that's your detective. Private link is your secure tunnel. And the shared responsibility model, that's your rulebook. Got it?
So there you have it, a quick tour of the essential security toolbox for any AI project you're running on AWS. We've got the locksmith, the detective, and the private tunnel. The only real question left is the one right there on your screen. Thanks so much for joining me.